I beat Mega Man 4 in one sitting without taking any damage. In this video, we will cover the rules for the challenge, the routing decisions behind the run, and discuss the attempts that eventually ended in the successful run. This video is a summary of the run. You can find the full run in the video description. Here are the rules for this run. In previous videos for this challenge series, I spend more time reviewing these rules, but for brevity's sake, this run is performed real time by me on an actual console with strict rules. No turbo controller, no major glitches, and most importantly, no damage allowed. If you'd like to hear more about the rules for this challenge in general, check out one of the earlier Mega Man Challenge Run videos. We'll first cover Mega Man 4 as a whole. Mega Man 4 kicks off the later half of the NES series, where Mega Man 4, 5, and 6 follow a fairly similar formula for stages. There are 8 Robot Master stages at the start, then there are 2 sets of castle stages with 4 stages each. This game introduces the Charge Mega Buster, a very important mechanic for the rest of the series. The helpful robot Eddie also makes his debut here. In many ways, Mega Man 4 is one of the most straightforward, modernly designed Mega Man games out there. There are not too many stage gimmicks and most stages are pretty straightforward. Mega Man can obtain both the wire and balloon items for basic movement options, but neither break the game in any way. Bosses are pretty well known for doing a ton of contact damage in Mega Man 4, usually 8 health, which is almost a third of Mega Man's max health in one hit. Somewhat similar to Mega Man 3, Mega Man 4's Robot Masters often have secondary weaknesses, which makes the routing process for stage order and weapon energy management much more fun. Let's begin by talking about the route. Later, we'll review the run stage by stage and get into some specific details for each one, but for now we will discuss the route for navigating this game. The route for this game is fairly straightforward, so this section will be fairly brief in this video. The first decision is to decide where to start the game. In Mega Man 4, the choice is pretty obvious. Brightman's weapon, Flash Stopper, is so incredibly good, and Brightman himself is easily defeatable with Mega Buster, that there's really no other reason to go anywhere else. Plus, there aren't any mini-bosses or overly difficult section of Brightman's stage either. Flash Stopper has many unique properties. It freezes almost every basic enemy on screen, it lasts for a long time, and can be even further lengthened on time by continually sliding while it's active. And it also makes enemies that have semi-invulnerability, such as shield attackers, susceptible to regular buster shots. It also makes it so that some enemies either do not spawn or spawn and are immediately frozen. There are minimal downsides, one of which is that the player cannot press pause to swap weapons while it's active, but even that is barely a problem. And on top of that, it is a great weapon for fighting Pharaoh Man, who has one of the more chaotic boss fights without his weakness. From there, weakness order is followed, Pharaoh next. The balloon item is early in Pharaoh's stage, and although it doesn't get much usage in the 8 Robot Master stages in this run, it's still nice to have and will get much more usage in the castle stages. Afterwards, it goes Ring, Dust, Skull, Dive, Drill, and then Toadman. Sadly, we pass on the wire item in Dive Man stage, which simply does not have any practical use. Sorry, wire fans. The Cossack Castle stages come after, and there's a fair amount of weapon energy management that happens between each stage, because not only is weapon energy not replenished between stages, it does not get replenished for the rest of the game. This isn't a huge problem because there are weapon energy items scattered throughout the whole game, but it is a consideration when going through the castle stages. That's about it for the route overview, so let's get into the run. We begin in Brightman stage. With Mega Buster only, the first few screens are handled with well-timed Mega Buster shots and navigating some of the tricky platforming with the baton enemies. Brightman stage has the lights that turn off and on based on which enemies you defeat, but it's nothing overly difficult with some knowledge about the stage's layout. Brightman is the first boss, and he has an interesting property about his AI pattern. Brightman will only use his Flash Stopper weapon against the player when he is at specific health values. The player can avoid this entirely by firing one uncharged Mega Buster shot for 1 damage, then only deal 3 damage for every subsequent shot via charged Mega Buster. In practice, this is pretty easy. Just open the fight with a shot, then land charged shots until he's down. It goes well in this fight, but it is one of the harder fights in the game since it is very execution heavy, and you have to preemptively jump and react to what he's doing in real time. Pharaoh Man is next. Immediately, Flash Stopper gets put to use. The Sasurino Scorpion enemies won't spawn under Flash Stopper, so the first screens of Pharaoh are very easy. The balloon item is acquired and gets some immediate usage. One of these first jumps over the hover platform enemies with the Batonton nearby is kinda tricky. The Batonton will either swoop down on a short or long pattern, so I developed a jumping technique to cover for both, and if the Batonton took a long time to come out, I'd preemptively switch to balloon and slide under it. These little techniques to mitigate taking damage are often missed unless they are specifically called out, and this is a good example. Pharaoh Man's fight is very simple. Use Flash Stopper and keep him in a loop. There is a small chance he breaks free, but generally he is in the same place and it doesn't require full weapon energy to defeat him too. Ringman is next. The first few screens get cleaned up with Flash Stopper. Are you starting to see a pattern? The mini-boss here is called Kabaton Q, and the newly acquired Pharaoh Shot is perfect for dealing with him. Pharaoh Shot is also a great weapon, and it has a charged version just like the Mega Buster, but it can be fired in multiple directions. There's also a peculiarity with Pharaoh Shot that lets you get multiple hits off if the full charge makes contact with an enemy before being released. I don't consider it a glitch and allowed it for the rule set, since in reality it's very hard not to activate it at some point, but it is interesting and very useful. The Whopper enemies also go down to one fully charged Pharaoh Shot, and just enough weapon energy is preserved for Ringman at the end. Ringman is a very scripted fight, and if your timing is off you can definitely take a hit, but because it's the same every time if you move consistently, it's not so bad with some practice. A few fully charged Pharaoh Shots defeat him. Dustman stage starts off with using Flash Stopper immediately on the first screen to deal with the shield attackers, and the up and down enemies won't even spawn. The next section has a whole bunch of slowdown, but the Take Tento spawns are consistent. The next area, Met Hallway, was actually one of the harder parts of doing attempts of this game. It's easy to get through the screen with taking a damage boost or two, but doing it cleanly without taking any damage or getting crushed is kind of annoying. It's not hard, but it's also easy to mess up. Patience is real important for this part. Flash Stopper through the final few screens, then off to the boss. Dustman really only has one dangerous pattern, which is his Dust Crusher projectile. When he is at the edge of the screen, it's easy to slide away and dodge it, but when he's at close quarters, you basically have to time a well-timed vertical jump, but generally he's fine. He just sucks. Skullman's up next, and his stage starts off with one of the better enemy names in the game, Super Ball Machine Jr. Skullman's whole stage is completely trivialized by Flash Stopper. When Mega Man is sliding, the Flash Stopper timer doesn't decrement. In other words, the specific time when Flash Stopper runs out will vary based on the player's movement. There were some times where I would pause and wait until Flash Stopper ran out, then renewed a new one just to make each segment consistent. I would do this before the Emorm worm enemy on the second to last screen in the stage. Skullman is a very interesting robot master. He will only react to what you do, and he will not do the same action 3 times in a row. If the player presses left or right, he will always shoot 3 projectiles. If the player presses B, he will jump towards the player, then Skull Barrier, then walk towards Mega Man, then wait. I developed a strategy where I would do 2 neutral slides, fire a shot, then move very carefully while he was doing his actions. It looks dangerously close, but it's very consistent and ended up being extremely nice, because prior versions of this fight were much more difficult. Dive Man stage comes after. This stage is one of the harder stages in the game. Mega Man cannot jump out of a slide underwater in this game, so movement is tricky. Skull Barrier gets immediate use on the first screen, then Flash Stopper helps out, especially against Moby, the mini-boss. After the checkpoint, I use a combination of Pharaoh Shot and Flash Stopper to deal with the Monton Stingray enemies and the green M-422A enemies. This part requires a lot of patience to not make a mistake, since even missing one Pharaoh Shot or mistiming the Flash Stopper near the Red Sea mines can easily cause a hit. For Dive Man's fight, I opted to use Dust Crusher, which does 3 damage instead of his 4 damage weakness Skull Barrier. The reason I do this is for consistency later in the game, where in the refights I fight Dive Man with Dust Crusher so that I can preserve Skull Barrier. So for both my practice and keeping my muscle memory tight, the strategy was to fight him the same way both times. Dust Crusher is perfectly good against him, and Dive Man will charge towards Mega Man 3 times then shoot projectiles. Drill Man is up next, and is another moderately difficult stage. Even with Flash Stopper, there are a lot of screens, and some screens have Metal DX enemies that are not immediately solved with Flash Stopper. Dust Crusher helps in the early part with the Mets and Batontons, Then I briefly used Skull Barrier with some of the Take Tento enemies. The final stretch of the stage gets huge value from Flash Stopper. Drillman is a very particular kind of fight. He's often invulnerable and underground, but when he emerges from the ground and starts walking around and is firing drill bombs, he's quite dangerous. I opted for using Balloon to bypass this phase, because the game goes through considerable slowdown while drill bombs are detonating, and it is difficult to be precise on movement. The worst thing Drillman can do is a combination of random jumps around the screen and keep walking, but it's pretty rare, and anytime he goes underground, the fight goes back to being safe. At first he was a major threat, but over time, learning his pattern well allowed me to clear him consistently. The final Robot Master is Toadman. Toadman's first screen is pretty chaotic, but you guessed it, Flash Stopper helps out hugely with the Rakasser and Swaloon enemies. The platforming in the rain is definitely a little tight, so it's important to not rush or slip. The big stretch with Raton and Puyoyon are once again cleared with Flash Stopper, and guess what, the mini-boss, Escarou, is also cleared with Flash Stopper. Incredible! And to top off the stage, Toadman is here. He wiggles his hips, jumps around, but sadly does not really ever get a chance to attack. To much ridicule from my live streams chat, the very first Robot Master who I body checked and took damage from in this entire game's challenge was none other than Toadman himself. I somehow missed a slide and jumped straight into him. Drill Bomb takes care of Toadman and it's on to the castle stages. There are 2 sets of castle stages with 4 stages each, and Cossack is up first. Whereas during the 8 Robot Masters, Flash Stopper was used all over the place because weapon energy wasn't a concern. That's no longer the case. It's important to manage weapon energy throughout the rest of the game, and though Flash Stopper is certainly good on some screens, it gets used much less from here. Cossack 1 has a few long screens where Mega Buster cleans up the tomboy enemies on the first screen, and then some patience and fully charged Mega Buster shots take out the up and downs and the skeleton Joes. Balloon gets some major usage on the way towards the boss, and Rush Jet helps out too, which was acquired from Drillman stage. The boss at the end is Mothraia, who has a finicky hitbox and is susceptible to Ring Boomerang. This boss has a bunch of different possible patterns, but it moves pretty slowly and was rarely a problem. Cossack 2 is up next. The stage uses a combination of Balloon and Rush Jet to traverse, especially in the long Rush Jet section. A clever use of Toadman's weapon Rain Flush helps deal with the Mono Rotor and Batonton enemies safely. This is a fairly straightforward stage, there's no real rush in a lot of rooms and not much threat. The boss is Square Machine, and although speedrunners are always looking for some time save from this boss, it doesn't matter for this challenge. His platforms will be in different places based on his pattern, but it doesn't really matter, and after 3 cycles, he goes down pretty easily to Dust Crusher. Cossack 3 is the auto-scroller of this game, which is pretty rare in all of the classic Mega Man series. Rain Flush is especially nice for dealing with the Pakato 24 turret enemies, which ordinarily have a very narrow window to take damage from themselves, but Rain Flush immediately defeats them. Weapon energy is refilled in this stage where possible, mostly for Dust Crusher and Ring Boomerang. The whole stage was rarely a problem in my attempts. The Cockroach Twins guard the end of the stage. The first twin spawns and moves pretty slow and has 2 different attacks, but both of them are very reactable. Pharaoh Shot does a ton of damage, and after 5 charge shots, the second twin spawns. Although the second one moves faster, it always takes its action at the same intervals, so it's pretty easy to be prepared. Further, Skull Barrier gets used to block any rogue shots. It's worth mentioning just how good Skull Barrier is in this game for blocking enemy shots, especially those from bosses. Cossack 4 starts with some weapon energy refills, then the rest of the stage is tackled with both Rush Jet and Rush Coil, a Drill Bomb to open an alternate route, and then off to the boss. The Cossack Catcher can be exploited by sliding into the sides of the room. It is still a little dangerous at the start of the fight with his projectiles that come out, so a Skull Barrier at the start helps mitigate that possibility. Afterwards, simply sliding in the corner to mess with his movement and sniping him with charged Mega Busters while he's immobile will win the fight. Off to the Wily stages. Wily 1 is by far the hardest stage in the game, both stage and boss. This is the Met Factory, and Mets come in a few varieties in this stage. There's no nice usage of Flash Stopper or even Rain Flush to deal with this stage, so Mega Buster handles most of it. The Metal DX enemies are vulnerable when you're close to them, and some of them take one regular buster shot, and others take a charged buster shot to defeat. Sometimes I would bait a Met a certain way when I was close by, so that easier passage could be done from the other side. In the underwater section, Mega Man still can't jump out of a slide underwater, so careful movement is necessary. Rush Marine gets a very small cameo here to bypass a spike area, and it also helps with one specific Met that would be difficult to defeat without it. The boss is Metal Daddy, one of the tougher fights in the game. I entered the boss room with a full jump to get closer to the boss. Metal Daddy will show his body, then jump after either 2 or 3 ring boomerangs, then jump at a variety of trajectories at Mega Man. My strategy was to get in a few hits, watch closely for his jump, slide away, then use Rain Flush to deal with the Mets that spawn from the ceiling. The ceiling Mets have different spawn locations, so it's very hard to react to them, especially when Mega Man is in the corner. After the Rain Flush, often I would use Balloon to switch to the other side of the boss to give myself the most amount of room to dodge. Then the cycle repeats. Reacting to Metal Daddy's pattern on jumping either fast or slow is a big execution test, on top of the menu to Rain Flush in time. But after a while I got the hang of the fight and he would go down fairly consistently. Wily 2, on the other hand, is one of the easier stages in the game. Flash Stopper helps make the second screen with the Taka Tentos very safe. Then Rush Jet helps navigate around a bit. I opted to use Flash Stopper against the Momira enemies to make it very safe. The final screen is cleared with some Mega Buster shots and Rush Jet over the final Gachapon enemy. The boss, Taco Trash, has a fairly infamous glitch where Drill Bomb can disable the hitbox of its body behind it, making the fight very easy. My live stream's chat let me know that it was definitely a glitch, so I routed out the fight without it, and it still was pretty manageable. Taco Trash either fires a straight fireball or fires a large ball bomb to Mega Man's position. The goal is to get close to the platform where Taco Trash is, jump up after the fireball attack, then repeat. There is not enough time to jump up and use a ring boomerang after a ball bomb attack, so I only attacked after fireballs. With a little bit of work, this fight was also fairly manageable. The refight stage, Wily 3, fairly notoriously the hardest stage for this sort of challenge. In this game, both 8 Robot Masters and Wily Machine are in the same stage. After picking up some last minute weapon energy, there are a few screens of enemies before the boss, but they are easily dealt with. Drill Man is up first, and good spacing with Balloon and Dive Missile take him out quickly. Bright Man is the biggest execution test out of the 8 Robot Masters this late into the run, but good timing with Mega Busters take him out too. I opted not to fight him with Rain Flush since I got more use out of it in the castle stages and it doesn't help a ton anyways. Next up is Pharaoh Man. I had a run on a different day where Pharaoh Man broke free from Flash Stopper to my surprise, but on this run he cooperated and went down easily. Ringman goes down to the standardized strategy with Pharaoh Shot, then Dustman 2 goes down to Ring Boomerang, but in the refights I am able to use Skull Barrier to block some of his Dust Crusher projectiles. I want to save Skull Barrier ammo for Wily Machine, but 1 or 2 uses of it here is fine. Next is Skullman, who goes down to the exact same strategy as before. The second to last hit here against him was actually almost a major mistake, but I managed to time it just fast enough so that he didn't take an action. If he did take an action, it would have been 3 bullets, and I definitely was taking damage. Dive Man is up next, and as mentioned before, Dust Crusher is used to preserve Skull Barrier ammo. And finally, Toadman, our friend trying his best, goes down to Drill Bomb. The Wily Machine fight guards the end of the stage. Wily Machine Phase 1 is pretty simple. It fires 3 projectiles in a row, then has a short pause. Under the projectiles, Mega Man is perfectly safe, so some well-timed Ring Boomerang shots will take it out. The final shot is dealt with Drill Bomb, which isn't really required or helpful, it just bypasses some animation time. Wily Machine Phase 2, however, is one of the hardest parts of the game and in many ways is the final difficult execution test of the run. The projectiles it fires either go straight horizontal or they track Mega Man's initial position. Skull Barrier has huge value in this fight. When some of the projectiles track Mega Man back to back, it gets incredibly difficult to dodge them, especially when the game is in slowdown, so being able to pause the game and swap the Skull Barrier to absorb an incoming projectile is huge. Drill Bomb must also be manually detonated, and that requires practice to get down correctly. Otherwise, the drill bomb does no damage at all. Further, Wily Machine's position is always changing, which changes the timing of the projectiles and how the player needs to dodge them. So the fight is a mix of offense and defense, and is never the same. But in this run it goes pretty well, and it's on to the final stage. The final stage, Wily 4, is one long hallway with a bunch of Emorm enemies. The final boss is an interesting fight. It takes place in pure darkness. The boss will only spawn in one of 8 preset locations, and the projectile it fires will only begin in one of 5 preset locations, and will track to Mega Man's position as of firing. Here's an image of all possible spawns. The strategy is to stay to the left of the screen and either jump in place vertically or slide to the right without jumping. The goal is to avoid the possible Wily capsule spawn directly to the right of Mega Man. In sum, consistent movements will always result in a safe fight, but there are a lot of permutations and the player has to be ready for any combination of them. Charged Pharaoh Shot is used here to deal damage to the boss, and running out of ammo will kill the run here, so patience for the right opportunity to attack is crucial. In this run, he gives a pretty manageable pattern, and with some good positioning and calm nerves, Wily goes down and we're off to the Mega Man 4's ending on the train to celebrate. Mega Man 4 was the 8th game in the classic Mega Man series I beat without taking damage, after Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9. After Mega Man 3, which was the hardest game in the series for this challenge by far, Mega Man 4 was by far the easiest so far. It was very fun to route and practice this game, but this game has such nice tools to let the player deal with dangerous situations. Flash Stopper is one of the best weapons in all of classic Mega Man, and Skull Barrier blocking some of the most difficult to dodge projectiles in the game make it all very approachable. No matter what though, this challenge still is not easy and requires a lot of patience and skill to achieve, and I'm glad to have done it for this one. Thank you for watching. If you like this video and style of content, please consider subscribing to the channel and let me know your feedback in the comments. See you for the next one.